Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Samir Mayakar, and I lead the Polsky Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation here at U Chicago. We're so thrilled you can join us for this important conversation. It'll be a fireside chat with the CEO of Perplexity. We couldn't be more thrilled to host this event. As we kick off, my job is to tell you a little bit about what we do at the Polsky Center. Uh, our role here at the Polsky Center is to really be the hub of all things related to innovation and entrepreneurship at the university. We have a 20-year track record of helping build companies. And in just the past year alone, Polsky affiliated companies have raised almost $1 billion of capital. We just launched actually a $25 million deep tech fund, a new science incubator on 53rd Street, for those of you who have seen that building. And over the course of our 20 years, Polsky companies number now over 1,000 active ventures that have raised or exited over $10 billion. So we couldn't be more thrilled to be the host for this important dialogue. Of course, those of you who are going to compete in the new Venture Challenge know that AI is the big trend right now. Over 70% of the companies being born here in the AI space. And we couldn't have a more apt discussion than with the CEO of Perplexity. So to introduce our speaker, I'm turning it over to one of our distinguished alumni and faculty members, Dennis Chukazian. Dennis is a Booth alumnus. He's the former chairman and CEO of CNA Insurance. He teaches one of the most popular classes here on corporate governance. And besides being a friend, he's the person I know that uses AI the most. He teaches a series of AI courses, and any talk I go to with him, he's always looking things up, and it sounds like Perplexity is his #1 used tool. So Dennis, I'm going to hand things over to you.
Well, thanks very much, Samir. It's my pleasure to be able to introduce Aravind Srinivas, who is the CEO and co-founder of Perplexity. And I think, as many of you probably know, Perplexity is one of the major engines, AI engines, that answer questions for people and also can form agentic tools. The Perplexity deals with more than 10 billion secure and accurate answers every year that they produce. So it's very, very widely used. And prior to founding Perplexity, Aravind served as a research scientist at OpenAI, Google, and DeepMind. He's deeply involved in the topic, and his investors have included some of the top research scientists, and also has been involved in a number of transformational companies. On an educational basis, he has a PhD in computer science from UC Berkeley, a bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology in Madras. And on a personal basis for me, as Samir mentioned, Perplexity is my tool of choice. In the course that I teach, it's the tool that I recommend to people for a variety of reasons. So I'd also like to introduce our moderator today, who's going to be interviewing Aravind, and that's Sanjog Misra. He is the Kellstadt Professor of Marketing at Booth, and he's been involved with Booth for a long time. He's the faculty director of the Center for Applied AI, and he uses machine learning in his own methods and his econometric methods to understand consumer behavior, and a lot of the research he is doing is focused on the use of that tool. He's advised a number of companies in the past, including Verizon, Eli Lilly, ZipRecruiter, and he also teaches a popular generative thinking course at Booth. Before joining Booth, he taught at UCLA, Anderson, and at the University of Rochester. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sanjog, and he will then interview Aravind.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for that introduction. Aravind, welcome to U Chicago, even though it's virtually. Let's just start right at, there's a bunch of ways you can look at Perplexity. I would love to kind of get an idea of how you define what Perplexity really is.
Sure. Firstly, thank you everyone for having me. And before answering your question, I want to recall one experience I had. I was an intern at Toyota Technological Institute, which is housed in the University of Chicago. This was the summer of 2016. And I would take these really long walks from the office all the way to the subway because, they paid me a pretty low stipend. So I had to walk all the way to take care of my lunch and dinner. And I would always pass by the Booth School on the walk. It was such a beautiful campus. And, I really wish I could have been there in person, but appreciate you for adjusting to my schedule. So Perplexity as an answer engine, like how did we arrive at this? That's the question, right?
Yeah, I mean, just, do you think of it as an answer engine? How do you think of what Perplexity is?
Well, I think Perplexity started off as an answer engine, and I would say that still applies to us. The word answer can mean a link, can mean an actual answer to your question, can mean a task. You complete the task, and it can be agentic behavior. It's a broad enough construct in which you can say anything you have that you summon an AI for is usually some question or a command or a task. And we should be useful for everything. So maybe an assistant could be a better framing for that, but an answer engine to an assistant is what we are transitioning to. Uh, Previous era of last 2 decades has been all about search, and search is a marketing category. So when you ask for pizza near me, that's a search, but what the search engines incentivize to do is show you the people who are paying the most for that set of keywords. Instead, an answer engine should look at your personal preferences of whether you like pineapple on a pizza or not, whether you like pepperoni, whether you're vegetarian or not, like whatever, right? And then look at the reviews of what people are saying, and give you the best suggestion in a succinct way with really world-class UX and really well-formatted answers. And sometimes you can follow it up with agentic tasks like, okay, place an order for me by the time I'm there, and it should be able to do all these things. So that's essentially why we started this company to work on the long-term problem of solving the general assistant.
Interesting. You mentioned a bunch of things, like particularly broadly speaking, kind of on the under the rubric of AI. Like if I were to ask you, like, what are the 3 things that you're most excited about, like from
Yeah.
Perplexity's perspective, like in this space, what would those be?
I think accurate AI is fundamentally what it's about. It's not necessarily 3 different things. It's just one thing. Accuracy is the most important problem to solve in AI right now. And accuracy reflects itself in every single thing we do, whether it's giving you the right link to what you're asking, giving you the right answer to the question you're asking, or going through the right intermediate set of steps to complete a task for an agentic query, or writing a thorough research report for you on the deep research mode. All these sort of things will break if we're not accurate. And so that's the most important problem to solve. And like internet is full of human slop. There's a lot of SEO content out there. There's a lot of irrelevant content out there, and people want actual answers. They don't want to just drown themselves in like 20 different tabs. And so that's only solvable if we can build an accurate AI that can answer questions and do things for people.
Interesting. Yeah. So you mentioned agents a few times. Let's talk about agents. Just to level set for
Sure.
audience here. Crudely speaking, you can think of agents as being foundation models that are equipped with like tools and skills that allow them to interact with the real world. What do you think, like, are the major disruptions that are coming our way with AI agents and agentic AI?
So agents are a buzzword. We like to think about everything through the framework of assistance. So we have a browser called Comet, and we think of the Comet product as not yet another browser, but more as a personal assistant that's with you everywhere you are. And it's going to make the internet better for you. It's going to be able to answer questions for you from wherever you are, whether it's from the search bar, whether it's with the sidecar assistant with you on any web page that you're on, whether it's on a new tab page, it doesn't matter. And what we've found is like people who are curious, naturally Perplexity users. I was talking to Dennis and he was telling me that he asks like 20, 30 times a day. He uses the product, which is, let's assume 20 questions a day. If you give those people access to our browser, how many more questions can they ask now that they don't have to explicitly go to Perplexity anytime they want to ask a question? It's just AI is there with them all the time contextually. We found that the number of questions they've asked actually increased 6 to 18x.
Wow.
And this is just with the web browser. We haven't even released the mobile browser yet. It's not even available to them on the go. And we know that the world is largely on the phone. So the capabilities are like the potential for this product is way higher than what it is today. And I think that's what makes me realize that having an assistant with you that has all the context that you have, so that you don't have to like copy paste things, you don't have to figure out what to filter or not filter, you don't have to figure out like what to take away from here, you don't have to give all these 20, 30 different instructions in a long running chat. everything is just seeing the same context that you see and has access to all your calendar, your email, it can schedule on your behalf. I think that's so much better. It gives you the feeling of essentially having a second brain, which you delegate all the mundane, boring workflows to, and you can just engage in like exploratory, curious behavior. And that's hopefully going to make everyone like, much happier. It's not even about productivity for us. Like productivity is great, but that's just a very industrialist way of thinking about things. Fundamentally, we all want to be happy and just be ourselves and just dig deeper into things that is of personal interest to us. And one of the biggest reasons we're not able to do that is we're always drowned in workflows. And if that can be handled by your Comet assistant, hopefully it's just going to make work feel more enjoyable.
Just as a natural follow-up to that, like, do you think that behavior is going to change, whether it's, human behavior, consumer behavior, and like following that up, like, are there implications for how business changes or how society changes?
Definitely, it has to change. Like, change is the only thing that's constant in time, right? We've been through a lot of big changes, the agricultural age, the industrial age, the information age, and now AI. And one thing that's constant throughout these things is that how we've adapted well. And one of the two reasons are why we've adapted well. One is education. We've constantly learned to upskill ourselves and educate others around us. And so that's fundamentally about learning and curiosity. And that's a uniquely human quality. Like we're gonna like use our curiosity even better with these tools, because earlier, if you had questions in a lecture or in a business meeting, you'd be looked down upon, right? Like you'd be like, oh, why is this person interrupting the flow? I just want to complete all these topics. That's how the lecturer feels. Or like in a meeting, you have an agenda and you go through that, or if someone's presenting a slide deck and the whoever is interrupting with questions is going to waste time. But now you have a tool that you can just ask whatever question you want without the fear of feeling judged for how trivial that question is. You can learn new topics much faster. You don't have to go through 20 hours of YouTube lectures. You can just dig deep into like 20 different questions you can ask about the topic. And so I would say those who are curious are going to have a great time in this new era. And those who are more entrepreneurial, like which is kind of quite related to curiosity. You're only entrepreneurial if you're curious about things and you have like the open-mindedness to go explore things. I think they're going to have a great time in the AI age because, like entrepreneurship is all about how do you ac- allocate capital and take advantage of all the agency around you, which is like human workforce, and use that to return more capital than what you put into it, right? That's essentially what it is about. Now you have agency in many ways, both humans and AIs, and you have personal AI. And like in the beginning, when I started Perplexity, I didn't have an assistant or an admin or an HR or ops person. I did everything myself. I set up our own health insurance. I set up our own internal like HR management software, bank accounts. I opened everything myself. Incorporated the business. I did all of these things, and like now it's so if I had something like Comet at the time, I could have saved at least 1 month worth of time. And so that's the advantage the next entrepreneur has after me. Like it took 3 years to get here, but I'm very confident that like greater companies which are worth multi-billion dollars are going to be built with fewer people and faster time cycles, and that's really great for the GDP of the country.
Right. So I was just thinking about your response. Let's say like 3 years ago, let's say you wouldn't have, it's hard to kind of know where we would be today. If I were to ask you like 2 years from now, where do you see us? Like, and I know it's kind of a big
Yeah.
picture question, but just curious.
So I remember watching this interview of um, Linus Torvalds, the inventor of Linux operating system. And I think someone asked him this question, and he was like, "You guys keep asking me about these visionary questions, but what my mind is at is only fixing these potholes ahead of me, that like these small, tiny, random errors that I get to see on production, and those are feel like trivial problems, but solving hundreds of them every day compounds, and that's what leads to a much more reliable system. And on top of a reliable system, you have the foundational bedrock to build more interesting things. So if you wanted to build a good travel agent or an agent that can trade stocks for you while you're sleeping, or an agent that goes and finds coupons or orders or like cheaper providers of the same service that you're buying and make those purchases for you on your behalf, plan your trip, book your doctor appointments. All this sounds amazing. Like if I tell you we're going to get all this done in 2 years, you'll be like, wow, that sounds great. Like I would pay $1,000 a month for that AI. But I know that fundamentally our system, our backend is so broken. There's like 1,000 different bugs to fix. But I also know that that's how you build a future. You're going to build a future through like solving 1,000 boring problems that nobody wants to solve. And I think that's essentially what we're working towards, like the dream of a personal assistant that's so general, horizontal, it's capable, it's very accurate, it's very reliable. It's boring to do this, but once we do it, you're going to feel the magic and everything that it offers.
Let me switch gears a little bit. So Perplexity is kind of innovated on a bunch of fronts, right? Like coming up with citations, web search kind of improvements, agentic browsers now.
Yeah.
But each of these things, as we all know, have been copied, have been cloned. There's other players that come up with this. In the face of, we've heard this idea of like there's no moat also over and over again. Like, how do you think Perplexity is going to continue to compete when like things get kind of copied or adapted or adopted fairly quickly?
Well, I think there's only one answer. We continue to innovate and we innovate fast. And obviously, like, it's kind of tiring to run a race at the speed and keep running for multiple years. It's like a combo of a marathon and a sprint. But also, we live in unprecedented times. Like, we have a lot of people working here from Uber and Facebook. And I would always ask them, like, just to learn from them, hey, like, how was it when you were building the business? Like, was it this fast? Did you feel this level of stress and pressure? And they would be like, no, like, that one felt like, we were riding a Honda compared to like this one feels like a Ferrari. This is so much faster. Like, there's no time to even relax or like blink here. And Uber and Facebook were known to be like among the fastest growing companies, right? Both of them IPO'd at crazy prices, and more, like people created a lot of market value really quickly. So I would say this period is meant for the intense, the curious, the relentless, and people who are just constantly getting dopamine from getting things done. So we tend to attract those people, and they thrive really well here. And we constantly think about what's next instead of looking at what our competitors do. We know that we'll always retain the users if our service is the best.
Right.
Yes, growth will be a challenge if other people with bigger distribution channels build the same thing that you build. But you have to have the best service and keep building new things so that you keep attracting new customers. And this has to go on for a while until you have your own distribution. And now the set of questions will be like, how are you going to monetize as effectively as somebody else? How are you going to have the same margins profile? How are you going to like build an ecosystem of products, not just one product? So mentally, I'm prepared for like a decade-long journey of doing this thing at the same velocity and quality, and that's very hard.
So you mentioned this in terms of like the people you have, but so what makes Perplexity unique as an organization? Is that the culture? Like, is there something you do differently? Like, what makes you guys different?
Well, we are very like action oriented. We have a high bias for action because action produces information. Information leads you to like take the right decision, and decisions lead to like, need to be actionable and executed fast. And this needs to be a flywheel. So we start our meetings with questions like, what is the question that we're asking in the meeting? There's no like pitch deck. Actually, I tell people who directly get a meeting with me, I tell them like, don't waste my time. If the meeting is a Slack message, then you Slack message me, like 5 bullets at best, and tell me what you want me to decide for you. Or if you already decided, just tell me what the decision is and ask me for feedback. That's also fine. But we directly try to ask a question and arrive at an answer by end of the meeting. No delays. And then if Perplexity already has the answers, then don't even waste time asking me because I'm going to be worse at. I'll even tell you a story. I've told this in another meeting, which is while closing a recent funding round, a group of investors asked me to do a Zoom webinar and explain the browser agent, do a demo and all that, and I did it. And then they really loved the demo and they gave a follow-up of 20 different questions or 10 questions or something like that. And all reasonable questions to ask as an investor allocating capital. But I had no time to figure out how to write all these answers succinctly, and I knew a lot was at stake.
Right.
So I just pasted that entire email into, in fact, I didn't even have to paste it. I just literally used the Comet assistant and said, "Can you write an answer for me as if you were me?" And you can pull up all my YouTube interviews and, all internal materials and just write an answer. And it did such an amazing job that I literally had to just say, okay, now reply to this person with this whatever you came up with. And it just took over my Gmail and replied it to them. And they wired the money the next day. So, a free product that lets you raise tens of millions of dollars feels like a cheat code in life, but that's what basically we have. And I really try to push a lot for internal adoption of the tool, in a sense that if you don't even use the product we are building here internally, like why would you expect a user to use it? Like you're not even like using it yourself. So use what you ship, like especially the engineers who are working on a feature, you have to use it and you have to feel the pain of the user and you have to think like a user. And then most of your questions on what product decisions to take and all that are already answered. And so you don't need me, like I'm not even required. And I think your broader point was about the culture, I guess. Like, and my sense is culture is like a good way of understanding culture is like what you do essentially. It's not about what you write in a document. And also, like another way of thinking about culture is how do you scale yourself in the organization? Like you cannot be in every single meeting, so how do you make sure you're essentially invisibly there? Like so, and that the best way to do that is just operationalize a lot of this. Like if the product is bad and if I use it and you worked on the feature, I'm going to let you know directly that this is really bad. And think about it, I'm just using it as a user, and there's going to be millions of other people who exactly encountered this bug. Do you want that? Like, you should have figured this out while testing the product yourself. So that's the skill we expect out of product managers, engineers, and any like leaders like VPs or executives. Is like just be obsessed and have high attention to detail.
Cool. So, if what would be the set of things that you would like an answer to? Like, so what bugs you? What keeps you up at night? Like, what are the challenges that you face that you'll be like, this would be nice to?
I know it's a metaphorical question, so but just to tell you the truth, I don't have any issues sleeping at night. I am so mentally destroyed by the end of the day, with like meetings or hard problems to solve and so on. So I sleep very well. And
Interesting.
yeah, actually, this whole thing of like entrepreneurs means like you can't sleep at night is, I think it's been overblown. Like, honestly, if someone actually works pretty hard during the day, uh, your brain cells are pretty dead. Like, you hardly can think properly. And so I try to like really do things based on when I feel my brain is at a good capacity. And unfortunately, I'm also getting older, so I'm in my 30s now. So my
You can't say that. I mean, you're talking to somebody who's in his 50s, but okay.
look, I'm not like ageist, but what I'm trying to say is I had certain skills when I was in my undergrad in IIT where I could pull an all-nighter and then write an exam for 3 hours and then come back to the, hostel room and still study for the next exam and keep going like this for a whole week, no problem. I can't do all that today, and my brain works at peak capacity during the day, and I try to do most of my important thinking then, and then I try to do meetings towards the evening sometimes, just catch up on things, and do phone calls in the night where I'm not like, peak capacity and sleep off. So that's how I try to structure my day. And most of the times it's like random things. Like some days it'll be like our infrastructure is bad, it's broken, we need to move our servers somewhere else, and like we might not have multi-region deployment, or something else failed, or like someone's not giving us GPUs on time, or we might have introduced a growth plan to like give like one month free of pro to some people, and then that might be tanking our revenue somewhere else, and like I don't know, we have to quickly figure out root cause analysis. So I'm always in the weeds and trying to understand what's going on. So that's kind of what usually wakes me up or keeps me like go later to bed.
But like, you don't see any pressing big challenges that you're like, this is something
I mean,
we.
for the paranoid, nothing is like sudden challenge, right? Like I'm always operating with the mindset that everything we do will be copied, or every competitor is out to kill us, and everyone we have is going to be poached, or like in funding will dry out, or like, I always assume the worst and operate. I think it's just a mentality, so that if you're always prepared for the worst, like honestly, nothing can surprise you, and you'll be prepared to like still function well when things happen in a way that you don't expect it to happen. But at the same time, like I would say one thing I've learned over the last 3 years is like the culture, the balanced mind is obviously the most powerful mind. You don't overreact to successes. Let's say we signed a huge distribution deal, I don't go and like throw a party and celebrate. Similarly, when competitors have released a better version of the same feature, I don't like think everything is done and dusted either. So I think that really helps.
What is success like? What does success look like to you? Like, at what point do you say, oh, I, I've achieved what I needed to, or like, this is where I wanted Perplexity to be? Like, what does success look like to you?
I actually don't work for like success. Yes, I don't. I'm motivated by winning, but I'm not really like working for, okay, this is my limit, and once I get it, I'm done. Because then what do you do after that, right? I thought getting
That's
to a
my next question after
yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah, I thought getting to a unicorn would be cool, but we're way past that mark. And also, everybody becomes a unicorn now. It's like AI is so hot, and like it's easy to get funding. So then they say, okay, 100 billion, trillion. You can keep doing these things, but that's not. At some point, it'll stop motivating you to wake up every day and see the same old. By the way, I'm telling you, you gotta do this thing where you gotta wake up and it feels like Groundhog Day, where the same set of issues come up again and again and again. You ping the same set of people. You're going through the same sort of like channels, and so you should ask yourself, why are you doing this? Are you doing this for the fame, the wealth, or are you really motivated by the problem? And for me personally, like I come from a background where knowledge was always valued more than wealth. Like my mom and dad don't actually care so much about how valued Perplexity is. What they care more about is whether, like, especially my mom, like, she still says Google is better than you guys on these things and those things. And like the Google Discover feed that you get on the Google app gives her more relevant news than Perplexity Discover feed, because we didn't yet, scale the local content well in India. And so these are the kind of things that actually motivate me. I want to like build products that are truly useful and make life so much better. There are luxurious experiences like I know people around me have, like especially billionaires, executives. They have an army of assistants, admins, like personal help, and all these things can be automated with an assistant and provided to everybody else in the world. And nobody needs to spend 2 hours figuring out how to make a washing machine work, figuring out what to order, planning your own trip, looking for these coupons or budgets. Everything should be done by an AI for you, so that you can go spend time with your family, have that extra 1 hour. If you can get with your family, it's great, right? And I want to be able to provide these experiences to people. I think that is a measure of success, less about like the valuation of the company.
So there's tons of students, potential, or aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience here. Like, what's the one piece of advice you would get to them if they want to kind of build something in the AI space?
So for entrepreneurship, my only advice, constant advice, is grit, right? It's all about it. Uh, Basically, you just never give up ever. There's a quote from Elon Musk that says, "I would like." Someone was asking him, "You had a third failure in a row. Did you ever feel like giving up for related to SpaceX?" And he said, "I never give up. I would have to be dead or incapacitated." you know and it's very powerful, was it left a deep mark in me. So I I operate with that principle, and I would recommend that for every entrepreneur. You're never gonna. Maybe some people might get seed or Series A funding sooner than you. It's okay. Who cares? And maybe some people get more attractive valuations than you. Maybe some people are gonna get more PR than you faster. But they'll all hit roadblocks. Like no one ever has it always on the up. So you're gonna have to like face challenges, and it's okay if you face it in the beginning. It's okay if you face it in the middle, later. It doesn't matter. You have to just have that mentality to keep going.
Cool. Okay. We have a bunch of questions from the audience. I'm gonna, try and pick a few. So one of these, this is from Katie, and she wants to know, what role does brand play for you in driving continued acceleration of scale up and product adoption, going up against well-established brands with tremendous consumer penetration, like Google versus Comet, now obviously Atlas? Are you looking to make large-scale marketing investments with a focus on increased awareness? Like, where are you going with this?
Yeah, I mean, I believe in the brand and marketing stuff. Has to be done in an authentic way. Not cannot be cargo culted. Just hire a marketing department and then I ask them to build your brand. No, it doesn't work. You need to first understand what your brand is yourself. Like you need to have a new message to speak to people. Brand is fundamentally about emotions and values, right? Like what does your brand mean to people? And I think Google early on invested in it, and they built like a brand around being playful, and I think they had all this like doodles and Lego block colors. I think they had a certain, and that came from the founder Larry Page. And so for us, it's been about curiosity, like us being scholarly, being knowledgeable, being curious about things, explore things, and encourage curiosity. Because when AIs are going to be able to do everything you can do today for knowledge work, what are you uniquely suited for as a human is your curiosity. And so we want to celebrate that, and we want to build products that can increase the curiosity in you and across the planet.
Cool. Next question is from Jonathan Barlow. He wants to know, how does Perplexity plan to become profitable? Like in general, how do AI companies view profitability
Yeah,
while operating like with, you get the question.
of course. Uh, well, one advantage AI's companies have is it works truly with the economies of scale. Like as you operate at a larger scale, you can train models that are much better and more compact because of the volume of data you have. It's a simple physics thing where if your amount of parameters is lower, you need more data points to get the same capability um, compared to a model with more parameters. But with a model with less parameters can be served with fewer GPUs, and the cost of electricity is lower, and therefore your OpEx is lower. So I think if you get distribution and if you know what you're doing, if you have a really solid post-training and auxiliary model training team, and if you know how to do some clever things like prompt caching and all that, and if you build your own web crawling and indexing and ranking and browsing, serve it all in house, and eventually go build your own data centers if you need, nothing stops you from operating profitably. It's all just engineering and technical challenges.
Okay. Here's a slightly different type of question. If you were to start a different startup today, well, what would it be? But also, like, would you do things differently or?
Well, with the wisdom I have now, I'll obviously do things differently. If I don't, then I'm not learning. But I'm actually not sure what startup I would start today. Like if I were to stop doing Perplexity, there's this weird joke about how like some people just start the same company again and again and again because they're so obsessed about the idea. I'm just obsessed about this assistant and answer engine problem. I've always, I just like Dennis was telling me how he uses Perplexity. I used to use Google a lot as a kid back when it was not serving these many ads. Actually, when I was a kid, Google used to put ads on the right corner, and keep the search result page clean. So I would say like listen to your obsession. That's it doesn't matter what I would start. Whatever you should start is whatever you're obsessed about, and your actions will tell you what you're obsessed about. What products do you use more? I always when I had internet, I would use Google and Wikipedia the most, and that naturally translated to starting Perplexity. because Perplexity is essentially making Google more like Wikipedia, right? And I think that there's a lot to just listening to your own like passions.
There's different versions of this question, but I'll put them all kind of together. What are you looking for in people at Perplexity? Like what skills, personalities, like, what what's the ideal type of person for you to
Yeah.
Perplexity?
I would say that we definitely have a very high bar for engineering excellence. We try to make product managers pretty technically aware, at least. And I spend a lot of time doing this myself. Like when I talk to product managers, I often try to push them to think about like, do you really understand what's going on in the back end? Do you know like which engineer is working on what? Do you know why they're working on this? Uh, and I would expect them to understand technical concepts, and especially breakdown of a latency of a query, the concepts like tail latency, concepts like what latency is on the client and what's on the server. Uh, Everything I expect them to understand so that, by the way, just to give you an example, I guess Satya is an alumnus of your school, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's you might think he's a business guy or an MBA guy. Like his level of technical depth is very commendable. Like even today when I have conversations with him, he can talk about like specific algorithms in post training, like GRPO versus DPO versus PPO, on the oral side, and like how many tokens you need to train on things, and how do you do the evals, and like he knows all these things. He knows differences between H100, H100, and H200 versus Blackwell's, GB200s. He's very very technically deep, and I think that's the future. People who can do both, brand building, marketing, product experiences, UI, data tracking, evals, as well as like reasonably having a good technical grasp over how the backend systems work. I think they're going to have a great time in the coming era.
Cool. Let's see. So Perplexity, so this is from Beatrice. Perplexity recently raised 200 million as new capital. In light of this, could you elaborate on the primary areas where you plan to deploy this capital? What are you prioritizing? What milestones are you setting? Like,
Yeah, so the Comet is the primary focus area. We're launching the mobile version of that next month, and next month is literally 2 days away, so pretty soon. And then we're also gonna like um, build something called the background agent. We have an email assistant product that automatically drafts your replies, schedules your things, kind of like similar to what I was telling you, Sanjog, the give the feeling of having like people working for you, right?
right.
And we're gonna build more such agents that run in the background, so that even as you sleep, they're doing your work. So, but for example, I'm a guy with thousands of emails in my inbox, and having something like this automatically like prioritizing what I should read and drafting the replies ahead of time. That means like I'm having a workforce that's working for me as I'm sleeping. And these are going to be expensive. These are going to be capital intensive, a lot more inference consumption. So, but we're going to build that and like charge it at a premium subscription plan, and hopefully people derive so much value from it that it doesn't matter. As long as the AI makes money for you and saves you money, whatever money you spend on the AI is going to be a percentage of what you actually make and save. And that's the future economy, and that's what we're going to deploy our capital towards.
Interesting. So asynchronous agents rather than
Asynchronous multitask background server agents with availability for pulling personal context on the client side with something like Comet, and synchronize across all the devices you're using, and easily accessible with just voice mode.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Here's a question which is kind of more on the personal fronts. How was it as an international individual from India building your own company in Silicon Valley?
Pretty difficult. I have lost a lot of hair. I have gray hair. I've definitely like been gone through very, very difficult times, but at the same time, like, I really didn't want to do things in the cargo like cargo culting, how everybody else did companies here. So I never did happy hours. I never did dinners, group dinners, founder dinners. Never really went to much of these events. Yeah, and so really stayed heads down, focused on because I knew product velocity and quality is how I can actually attract investments. Other stuff that everybody else was doing was not my strong suite. So you gotta legit just focus on your skills. And one thing, like, if you're coming from India all the way here, it's very unlikely you came uh, without a solid engineering background, right? Most schools don't accept you here. So I think that is your strength. You gotta like capitalize on that and use that and be very insightful.
Yeah. Um, let's see. So there's a bunch of questions on this topic too. I'll read one out. As AI development increasingly depends on access to affordable and sustainable energy investment is becoming a key driver of growth in the sector. Broadly speaking, this is something that a lot of people are talking about, like the amount of energy needed for AI, forgetting about Bitcoin and crypto and all of the other stuff on top. Like, is that something that you guys have been thinking about too?
Well, I don't think we're in the business of building data centers yet. I actually think a lot of the infrastructure build out that other companies are focusing on, I think they're more capital rich compared to ours. And you got to buy like 10 or 100 nuclear reactors, and then use that supply the electricity required to build these data centers, buy bulk orders of GPU chips, or build your own chips like Google is doing. I mean, we're not in that business. People call us a rapper sometimes, but I know those who really know what it takes to build a product like this and operate at the scale we do truly understand the challenges of doing a lot more infrastructure work outside the core model and doing a lot of the orchestration work. So we are more focused on that. Our belief, at least my belief, I wouldn't say ours, because I have to discuss with other people in the company, but my belief is that we might be overbuilding some of this infrastructure ahead of time. And maybe I'm wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong here because if people use more AIs, it's good. But we might be building more than needed. And I also think some algorithmic breakthroughs will happen that'll make models more compact and efficient, and like you can serve them with fewer chips, and still serve like hundreds of millions of people. And I think I'm more optimistic of that future.
Interesting. On a slightly different kind of also a concern is, we see the amount of data being now as these agents come into play and the browsers come into play. There's a lot of like issues relating to privacy, for example.
Yeah.
Like, how does Perplexity kind of think about privacy, and like what are the trade-offs that you guys make?
Yeah. So with something like the email assistant I was talking about, we delete all your emails that we look at to label it and draft replies, and we auto delete any scheduling threads beyond 2 weeks. And on Comet, we offer zero data retention for any incognito mode browsing and incognito mode queries. And all the history on your browser just stays local to your client. We don't look at anything you do on any other site unless you explicitly invoke the Comet Assistant to ask a question. And even then, we only look at stuff that's publicly accessible. Uh, and any private personal context queries, we only store the prompt, but not the actual intermediate, like stuff it extracted from the web page. So we can actually communicate all this better, just to be very honest. Like, I think most people don't understand this. So that's what we're working on, like in product proactive communications of what the agent is seeing and not seeing. But fundamentally, I believe that people need to warm up to the reality that the way the browser itself works is there is a user agent from your browser on the client, and that's pinging the server of different websites and pulling the content and just rendering it with JavaScript with the rendering engine of the browser. That doesn't need to be done just by you anymore. A little bit of that browsing will be done by an AI too, especially when you give it a task to go find something or go research something. AI is also going to use the browser just like you as a human, as another user agent. And that doesn't mean it's actually pulling your personal data. It's just pulling data from third-party servers and doing your work on your behalf.
There's also a set of questions that are a little bit more on the technical sides, but for people who are into ML, AI in that space, like, are there particular areas that you think they should be focusing on? Like, where are things going that you see need that would be great for students to focus on?
Well, I certainly think more work needs to be done on like evals. It's very hard to evaluate agents, especially because outcome-based evals, whether the agent actually did the task that you asked it to do, is insufficient to build a really reliable agent.
Right.
It can get stuck somewhere in the middle because I'll give you an example. Let's say you go task it to do something on LinkedIn, and then suddenly LinkedIn's UI just changed, right? Like they updated the UI and the placement of all the menus are different, or like it's hidden somewhere and it's just stuck, not knowing what to do. Um, would you still reward it for like trying to do the task in the same old way, or would you just say, okay, completely incorrect, and you get a negative reward? And so the RL agent doesn't get any intermediate supervision there. So building good evals that are focused on subtasks is not easy, and I think that's needed to build all these like reliable browser agents. And then guardrails, like obviously prompt injection is a problem in browser agents. So addressing that just requires you to build a ton of like ways to attack the browser agent and build classifiers that can guard the user against that. And and doing all this at the scale of like different languages, different style of like fooling the AI, just requires more work on the security side. So we're investing in that internally, but more external work on that can be automatically really helpful. And testing, right? Like, why should we just rely on quality testing just through humans? I think you can just give the browser as a client to an AI, and AI can learn to like just test the product just like a human would, and automatically flag bugs that exist and triage it to the engineers, and even write code to fix the bugs. Like, imagine how much faster software development can be if all this can be automated. So that level of like end-to-end software engineering workflows does not exist today, and it'll be great if people can focus on that.
So taking that to kind of a natural conclusion, like there's all this talk about AGI when it's showing up, not move from the if to when. What's your
Yeah.
personal take on where we are in this continuum? And are there things that are you in the worrying camp, or are you in the optimistic camp of things will be great?
I think the answer is never either this or that, right? It's always in the middle. I worry about even the current AIs. You may not even call it AGI, but I worry about people building the sort of companionship relationships with these AIs. There are like lonely people who are doing that. Basically, what's happening is they're lonely, and earlier they were going to social media and doom scrolling and like messaging arbitrary people and talking to them on DMs and getting scammed there. And now they're just talking to an AI and it's getting personalized. It has a memory of them, and they're able to hold like 30-minute, 1 hour conversations, and they're talking on voice mode, and like it almost feels like a person. And then some apps are just shipping these anime characters, and it feels even more real. And so I think like that's dangerous by itself. Like many people feel real life is more boring than these things and spending hours and hours of time. And I would also say all this AI slop, like video generation reels, you almost start to enjoy that content more than what people create in real life, real world. And so you live in a different reality almost altogether, and your mind is manipulatable very easily. So we're not working on these things as a company. In fact, whatever we are doing is actually going to like help fight that through accuracy. We can fight that through trustworthy sources, real-time content, and like channelizing inner curiosity. We want to build for an optimistic future. At the same time, I cannot stop other companies from pursuing things that might be more harmful than helpful, right? And because fundamentally more time spent on an app translates to advertisers paying more eventually to like get a share of their attention.
Again, this is maybe going back a little bit, but like monetization, you've brought this up before. Like, is there a path for Perplexity? Like, are there things that you're thinking that you would have to do? Advertising, product
No,
placement?
we're gonna try to figure out a non-advertising mechanism that scales beyond subscription revenue, but can monetize at a usage level, right? In my mind, ads is essentially usage-based monetization, right? So Google has serving around 15 billion daily queries, and they monetize 4% of that or something, which is pretty good. If you think about it, like 600 million daily queries are being monetized with ads. And if they make a certain cost per click on an average per query, then that's how they make $100 billion a quarter. I mean, it's not just from Google search advertising, but that's basically almost 90% or 100% margins. So I think that's possible if you can figure out a way for the agent to get paid to complete things on your behalf. If the agent saved you $1,000 on a flight booking, would you be willing to share $100 of it back with the agent? Yes. And would that flight company, airlines, also share a little bit of that with the agent for driving business to it from a competitor? Yes. And can this be done without having these airlines bidding against each other for that particular user? 100% yes. And so if you can make money both ways, both from the user and the agent, and share some of that incentives back with the user through points to spend further and increase their LTV, and get rewarded for saving the money and making the money through commissions and from the merchants too, I think you can have a pretty good margin profile. You're not going to have the 95% margin profile of Google search ad advertising, but you're going to have a pretty good 40 to 50% margins. I don't even know. I'm making up these numbers, which is like honestly far better than running like writing app companies, right? So I think the future is looking pretty good for any AI company that's working on consumer.
Is that something that like, so are there people at Perplexity looking at the economics of this? Like, there's on the research side, there's stuff that we are interested in about the economics of agentic AI, what happens when agents
Yeah.
interact with each other. Is that something that Perplexity is also looking at?
Well, I always the drawing board always goes back to the product, right? Like the whiteboard. You gotta nail the experience first. The agent has to be reliable and accurate and trustworthy and personalized, and the payment flow should work. It should be secure. Guardrails should be built around prompt injection, and it should be accessible on the phone. It should be accessible in voice mode. It should work in the background. These are like some 20 different problems I mentioned that need to be solved first. And if we solve this, the other part naturally occurs after, which is, okay, we can always monetize when we're providing value. The question is, are we providing true, incredible value that you cannot live your life without? Not yet, right? No AI is there at that point where your life just becomes completely unimaginable without it. It'll be harder without Perplexity or ChatGPT or any of these other AIs, but it's not unimaginable to live your life without it. So I think that the agent has to adapt, like truly become more reliable, yeah, and that's what we want to solve through the Comet browser.
Cool. We have maybe about 4 minutes or so, 3 or 4 minutes left. So maybe some personal stuff, like apart from Perplexity, what are the other tools that Aravind uses?
Let me see my phone so that I'm not giving you like a incorrect answer. I test other apps, other rival AI apps. So I have ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini on my phone. And are you talking specifically about AI or in general?
Yeah, ideally AI, but more.
I mean, I still use Google because we haven't finished all the coverage of sports, and like tennis is something we haven't finished yet. And I follow tennis a lot, so I check scores. I use messaging apps, Signal, WhatsApp, iMessages, and yeah, and then I use Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Like I'm just like everybody else, like just using all these tools. In fact, I would say my usage of AI is obviously pretty high, but I'm sure you guys use it in very different ways than I do because I'm mostly meeting so many different people and constantly having questions to ask related to who I'm meeting or what I should say during a meeting or catching up on news. Like I was just curious why the Meta stock went down by 10% today, and what, like particularly just understanding that. I think I just have arbitrary questions and I ask Perplexity all these things.
Cool. Outside of AI, outside of Perplexity, what does, I mean, I understand that you're exhausted by the end of the day, but like what does Aravind do to have fun, to unwind?
By the way, I have a lot of fun doing this. I'm exhausted because my brain capacity is exhausted, not because I don't want to do it.
Right.
I have a lot of fun working on this problem in the company. In fact, the problem is I don't know what like fun other kinds of fun is almost, because this is too much fun. That said, like yeah, I do my workouts. I spend time with my family, all the usual things that everybody does. I do it too, and I just work more than normal people, but that's because the work feels really exciting.
In closing, is there any message that you want to give our students broadly about?
Yeah,
What-
stay hungry, stay curious, and listen to your gut on what you truly enjoy. Don't like do things just because other people do it in that way. Often, like the alpha is in identifying a very different way to do the same thing, or going behind something that everybody considers is like a dead zone, because you have a new angle to it. So listen to your inner gut and never give up. If you want to go into entrepreneurship, never give up, because that's the number one quality that every single successful entrepreneur has.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time. You are always welcome. Well, virtually
Thank
or in
you.
person. Like if you want to come hang out with us at booth, we're more than welcome to.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care.